Welcome to Lead with AI. I'm Dr. Tamara Nall. In each episode, we will take you behind the scenes with visionary leaders shaping the future of AI across public and private sectors. Join us as we explore groundbreaking projects and innovations that are transforming industries and making a real impact on people's lives. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Tamara Nall. I'm your host for Lead with AI. And I am so excited to have our guest today, Dr. Mark van Rijmenam. So I have his bio here, and it is so long with full of content, and I'm so excited about our talk today, our discussion today, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much for having me, Tamara. It's great to be on your show. So I am a strategic futurist, and I help Fortune 500 organizations all around the world understand emerging technologies. And I'm actually really proud because a couple of weeks ago I was recognized as the world's best futurist, which I think is pretty cool. And
Yes.
Salesforce recognized me as one of the 16 leading voices in AI globally. I like to live on the cutting edge of tomorrow, as we'll undoubtedly discuss in our conversation. But I like to practice what I preach to understand what's happening with these technologies. I've written 6 books. I just finished my 6th book called Now What? How to Ride the Tsunami of Change, which should be out in the next couple of months. I also run an AI startup myself called FutureWise, where we help people who are drowning in information overload, which is basically, I think, everyone, to sort of understand and move from chaos to clarity with hyper-personalized insights using AI. I live in tomorrow. I literally, because I'm based in Australia,
Right.
and anything cutting-edge technology is my sweet spot.
That is amazing. And for everyone that's listening, he also pioneered the use of digital twins and virtual reality, but we're going to get to that. So stay tuned because that is phenomenal and what everyone wants to hear about. So let's start with, and of course you mentioned it, you're about to publish your 6th book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you've written extensively about the convergence of AI and the metaverse. So how might this intersection reshape our professional and personal lives in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think that the metaverse is something really interesting because a lot of people think it's a fad, and a lot of people think, Mark Zuckerberg spent $70 billion on the metaverse, and what a failure it is. I disagree with that because I think the metaverse is going to be the next playground for humanity. And not necessarily that we all live in virtual reality, which undoubtedly some people will, but more the fact that we can add an entire layer on top of our physical reality. So the augmented reality, that's what I think is the most interesting space when it comes to the metaverse, because we can add sort of an infinite number of layers on top of our physical reality. Which is fascinating. So from the way I see the metaverse, it's sort of where the physical moves into the digital, and where the digital moves into the physical, and the convergence is where exciting things happening. And AI is making this all possible because it allows us to create better devices, to create spatial intelligence, which is really, really crucial if you want to have a very realistic overlay on the physical reality, or bring the physical reality into virtual reality. So we want to have spatial intelligence to map what's going on, so we can play within that physical / digital space. For me, this is really super exciting. I think the major constraint at the moment is that big bulky headsets that weigh half a kilo are just simply not going to cut it. So we need to wait until we have more advanced technology. Give it another 5 to 10 years. I think by that time we will ditch our phones, we will ditch our computers, we will ditch all those kind of devices that we no longer need. And because we will just have glasses, sleek glasses, or even smart lenses will overlay a reality on top of our physical reality, and we'll go from there. So that once we reach that stage, I think everything will change because we will interact with the world in a completely different fashion. And maybe we might see people in a cafe like now. People are all on a smartphone doom scrolling. A few years from now, people will be swiping in mid-air and doing all kinds of things without anything in front of them, and that will be normal. So it's I think the metaverse, the digital world is going to be amazing, and it's going to have a really big impact on organizations. We'll have, come up with new products, new services. We'll be able to have, holographic communication with others. The future from this perspective is super exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. And there was a time, was it maybe last year, where I was really researching a lot about the metaverse, because there were people who were saying, well, in the metaverse, I could buy somebody's address that was a celebrity and then maybe sell it back. I mean, I don't know if that's still going on. But
I hope not, because that's a really stupid thing of the metaverse. Because in the virtual real estate, I think, was the biggest scam from a few years ago. Because it sort of assumes scarcity in an infinite world. So, it just to me, it simply didn't make sense that people would spend $1 million on a virtual piece of land, which is next to a celebrity, whatever, but I guess maybe I'm an outlier here.
And then let me ask, so I'm gonna ask this from two different parts. You're talking about how at some point we won't even have any of our gadgets, etc. So my question is, as a person, just a regular person like me, how should I be thinking about the metaverse in terms of having my physical space and my digital space? And then as a business owner, how should I be thinking about it so that I'm not left behind, if you will?
Well, I think you should think about it as almost unlimited opportunities of interaction and communications and fun and entertainment, and new business opportunities from that perspective. It's if all of a sudden we can add infinite number of layers to our physical reality, that offers us almost an infinite number of business models that we can tap into, that we can explore. Whether it is helping you find the parking spot, which, by the way, by the time we have this technology, is no longer necessary because we have self-driving cars. But it allows us, from a business perspective, to come up with new opportunities that were simply not possible without this technology. It's only now that we start to reach a stage in the development of technology where these opportunities become reality. So I think from a business perspective, you should, depending on which industry you're in, you should really think out of the box of how you could leverage this. If you're manufacturing, you can leverage digital twins of your tools, of your factory, to interact with that from remotely, or help you fix things with augmented reality. From a retail perspective, you can use augmented reality in the streets to indicate where people should go, or where you can advertise. I don't think this would be a nice future if we have all augmented advertising in the streets, but that's will probably happen. So I think what I would always tell my organizations when I help them is, when it comes to emerging technologies, we need to have a different perspective. We need to look at the world literally from a different perspective. That a 3 can be an E, an M, or a W. And all of a sudden, if you look at it from that perspective, you see a whole bunch of new opportunities open up. And that's what the metaverse will do. It will open up an enormous amount of opportunities. We just have to find them, and we just have to look for them. But if you go in there with an open mindset, I think it will be super exciting.
And then also, you've often warned us about deepfakes and AI-generated content creating a, quote, post-truth world. What strategies do you recommend for maintaining trust and truth verification?
Let me first tell you an example of how things can go wrong. And then I can dive into from there of how we can protect ourselves. So an English engineering firm called Arab, a global engineering firm, among others, responsible for building the Opera House here in Sydney. Last year, so February 2024, they were scammed out of $25 million through a scam using deepfakes. So what happened was a director from their Hong Kong office received an email that he had to pay several invoices worth $25.6 million. And he was a little bit skeptical, so he organized a Zoom a board meeting with 3 board members to discuss those payments for those invoices. Unbeknownst to him, those board members were both in audio as well as video completely deep fakes. So there were criminals who were pretending to be those board members, and it was sufficiently accurate enough that the director didn't notice it and agreed to pay the $25.6 million in invoices. So that is a clear example of how bad things can get. because we are unable to to tell truth from fake. And if we are not skeptical, if we're not paying attention, it's very easy to fall for these scams. I'll tell you another example, because the same thing happened to Ferrari a few months later. But in this case, a director received a call from the so-called CEO. And after talking with the CEO for a while about supposedly takeover of another company, he started to become hesitant. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. CEO, but I need to interrupt you. I need to identify you." So you asked the question, what was the book that you gave me last week? And obviously the criminals had no idea, so they hang up the phone, and Ferrari was saved from being scammed out of a few $1 million. Why do I tell this story? Because that's where the crux is. We need to be able to become more resilient, and we need to be able to dare to stand up to our superiors, to ask them and to identify them if we are not completely sure that we are dealing with the person that we think we are dealing. Now, that sounds really easy to do, but unfortunately, in most cultures in organizations around the world, it's an absolute no-go to stand up and to interrupt your superior and say, Madam CEO or Mr. CEO, I'm sorry, but I need to identify you. In most organizations, you'll probably get fired if the moment you do that. So that's something that we need to change immediately if you don't want to be scammed out of millions of dollars. Because these criminals, they use these technologies and they will use them to their benefit and to our detriment. So we need to stand up. The same thing applies also for our personal lives. There are plenty of examples already where criminals have cloned the voice of kids. Then the kids call the parents as if they have been abducted, asking for thousands of or millions of dollars, and the parents pay because your crying daughter on the phone, of course, is the worst nightmare that can happen to you. But we need to be, in this case, we also need to be resilient, and we need to be able to have sort of kind of code words to say, okay, daughter, what's the code word? And if the daughter can't answer the code word, you're dealing with a fraud. It's terrifying that we have to have this, but unfortunately, that is the reality of our of society nowadays. So we need to become more resilient. We need to ask questions. We need to stand up to our superiors, and that's how we, apart from all the technical verifications that we can do, these are the human. The easiest ways how we can protect ourselves is by simply asking questions.
No, I love that, because even at my company, The Leading Niche, we get emails. We haven't gotten calls, but you have me thinking for sure. And tomorrow I'm putting that in place. Someone asked us personal based on some corporate retreat that we went on or something, so that we can make sure that we're not scammed. I love that.
Very good.
I really love that. Okay, perfect. Now, you also talk about the fact that as leaders, we should be techno-optimists. Elaborate on that.
So techno-optimist, I think, the world is changing so fast at the moment, and technology is neutral. So it is really how we deal with that technology, how technology will affect us. Now, obviously, there are a lot of ways that technology will be misused. The deepfakes we just talked about is a clear example of that.
Right.
But I think technology also has so much to give us. It can improve our education, enable lifelong education, hyper-personalized to everyone. It enables us to completely improve healthcare, to move from passive, reactive healthcare to proactive, preventative healthcare. It can really help us make our lives better. If I live in Australia, my family lives in Europe. If I can have a holographic phone call with them, that would be awesome. Where it feels like if they are with me. And so technology has a lot to give. And I think that's why we should be optimistic, because it can make our lives so much better. But we need to do it in a way that's ethical, that's responsible, and that benefits humanity as a whole, and not just the select few of the companies who are building the technology.
I love that. And so you've pioneered several innovations in speaking, including the world's first TED Talk in virtual reality. Talk to us about that.
Yes, that was quite cool. It was in 2020. The pandemic had just started. As a keynote speaker, my business was obviously hit very, very hard because my agenda was just completely empty the moment the pandemic was announced. So I had to reinvent myself. So I rebranded to The Digital Speaker. From there on, I got the opportunity to deliver a TED Talk in virtual reality. So it's on my website, on thedigitalspeaker.com. where you can see a video of my rather like how do you say it? Basic avatar for 5 years ago, doing a TED talk in a virtual reality space, and you could, there's a video format, and you could watch it in virtual reality, which was really cool to do. It's a great experience. If I look back at it, it's quite laughable because the quality is is really bad, but at that time it was very innovative. I think it's still innovative, and it was really cool to do. So it was a great thing, and yeah, from there on, I've only taken it to the next level.
And do you find that since then there have been more TED Talks in virtual reality or speaking engagements? And that leads us to something you mentioned earlier, your digital twin. So talk to us about that too.
So no, yes, there are niche groups around the world who really use and leverage and doing talks in virtual reality. I think it's very minimal still. It's very niche. Again, people don't like to have a big bulky headset on. The number of people who have a VR headset is quite limited. If it's 100 million, it would be a lot. And then there's a lot of different qualities in a VR headset. So the hardware is not yet capable of it. And then the software, it's not really hyper realistic. It's a bit comical. So it's not there yet. It will come, but it's not there yet. Now, the other thing is my digital twin. So since I started my brand as a digital speaker, I wanted to create a digital twin of myself. But that's been always very, very difficult. So when ChatGPT was launched, I was like, now we've got something. It still took me quite a long time to get to that stage. But about a year later, end of 2023, I launched my digital twin, the first person in the world to do so, where you can talk to me via text, audio, and video in 29 different languages. It's all based on everything I've done and said and read about in the past 12 years. So it's about 6.5 million words in there. It's being updated by the stuff, also with the stuff that I read, because if I read it, my digital twin needs to know about it. And so you can WhatsApp me now. So you can WhatsApp my digital twin 24/7. I have an app where you can talk to me via video, via text, via audio, whatever you want. And I think it's a great experience and a great experiment. And obviously now that many people are using it, who also have built a digital twin of themselves. So I'm definitely not alone anymore, which I think is a good thing. But it's really cool to see, to have done this and to have experimented with it, and it helped me see where this technology is going. So that in probably the next 5-7 years, you and I can have a conversation via holograms, and we put our glasses, and it feels like we're sitting in the same room. And I think I'm very much looking forward to that, because this communication, what we do at the moment, is very 2D, and we humans are made for 3D. We're not made for 2D; we're made for 3D. And right. that will happen. So my digital twin was the first step in exploring what's happening there.
And then talk to me so that our viewers and our listeners can see, talk to us about it exactly. So if I go to your website and talk to us about how we can get to it, is it that I'm actually talking to your twin and not you, based off your training of the model throughout the years?
Yeah, I'll be at the beach when you talk to me then. So it's a progressive web app. So again, it's an experiment, but it's a progressive web app. Here you go to app.thedigitalspeaker.com on your mobile. You can get access to the app. You create an account and you can talk to me. You can call me. You can speak in your own language, and you can have a video conversation with me, which is based on a meta-human. So it's nowadays we have HeyGen, among others, or Synthesia, where you can create an avatar of yourself by a photo. But I feel that's a very 2D experience. So I created a meta-human avatar, which is made by Unreal. So it's digital. You can move. Actually, you can move my face around if you want that. And I made myself look a bit younger, because why not? It's digital. And then when you do that, you can actually have that conversation with me. And you can have a live conversation with me, which is the fact that that's possible. again, it's early days, but the fact that it's possible, I think, is amazing that we can do that nowadays.
Yeah, no, and you said that a company called Unreal made it for you?
Unreal Engine is sort of the company that has MetaHuman, and MetaHuman.
Okay,
So we created my avatar in MetaHuman, which is an avatar generation tool to create the 3D realistic avatars. And so that's different from the HeyGen tools that you have nowadays, which are you upload a photo and they animate your image, which is I think is more 2D, and mine is more 3D.
And I'm going to ask the same question I asked before. For those that are listening, how can they, because you said there's a lot of people who are now doing it now, which meant you were the first, and so therefore you have something there. So how can folks think about using digital twins for themselves?
I think it depends on what you're looking for. I think for thought leaders, it makes sense to have a digital twin, so you can just have more people can have access to your content. Digital twins is, of course, it's not just a digital copy of a human. A digital twin also means a digital replica of a process or a system or a tool or a robot or whatever. So you can use the digital twins to interact with those processes in virtual reality or in the digital world. And again, as I started earlier, we need to have a different perspective of how we look at this technology. And I believe that digital twins, whether it's a physical eye asset or a human or organic asset, I think it makes sense to have that and to explore that area and to see what it can do for you. I think that's the main lesson I give to organizations is start exploring what this means for you. Start exploring how you can leverage this technology, and then from there you can start implementing it at a wider scale.
And what has surprised you most about how people have engaged with your digital twin?
Well, everyone is just really wow, is it even possible? Which I think is quite cool, and I think that's how people are sort of responding to it, and then see what's possible nowadays, and then sort of projecting what can be possible in the years to come. I think that's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, and I asked this of all my guests, and that is, what is something that you think in terms of the future that will wow somebody, that will stretch their imagination in terms of what the future holds and what's possible?
When I think about the future, is how far we can stretch it, and so if you look at artificial intelligence, the way we look at intelligence is a very limited perspective. Intelligence was created by a very slow process called evolution. It might not have been optimized for the most. Our brain might not be optimized to the best extent for intelligence because of food constraints and the size of our skull, etc. And now we have an intelligent being us, creating the next level of intelligence, and we're optimizing that using the best tools, so either light or silicon, for that intelligence. So if we look at intelligence in general, I think we should have, again, a different perspective on it. And I believe there is no upper limit to intelligence. To think that we humans are the most intelligent beings in the universe, I think, is a rather misplaced arrogancy. And I think that the level of intelligence that we can achieve is there is no limit to that. And thinking about that, understanding that in the next 10, 20, 50 years, we will develop intelligence that's infinitely more intelligent than us, is both exciting and terrifying. And I think that is something that not many people might think of, that the intelligence that we are going to create will be infinitely more intelligent than us human beings.
Right.
And how that's going to affect our personal lives, our business lives, our society, don't know. But I think we need to think about that.
And you said that is it could be the most exciting or the most terrifying.
Yes.
So what are you most excited about and what are you most terrified about?
Well, most excited about that, it will help us solve all the world's problems. It will help solve climate change. It will help us explore the universe. It will help protect Earth, get rid of poverty. All those problems that we humans grapple with. But at the same time, if we build it incorrectly, it will be the end of humanity. So it's rather terrifying, and also a bit of a shame. So I think that's sort of the terrifying thing, because I'm not so worried. Yes, technology, before we reach like infinite intelligence, humans can already completely misuse this technology, as we discussed earlier, from deepfakes, from the disappearance of trust and truth in society, extreme misinformation, extreme manipulation, extreme polarization. That in itself is terrifying. But I think if we take it a step further, and if we're not building AI correctly, like if you're not building super intelligence correctly, it might mean the end of humanity. And I'm not the only one who says this. There's, I think, the consensus and don't hold me on this, but I think the consensus is that like 10 or 20% of people, of researchers, of scientists, fear the same thing. So there is a danger to this, and we need to think carefully as a society about how to go about this, which also means we need more collaboration instead of fighting, as is currently happening in the world. From a AI and collaboration and an arms race perspective, it's very much us versus them. I don't think that's the right approach when it comes to building the next level of intelligence, and we need to have a different approach here. And I think, that's sort of where we need to work together instead of work against each other.
And I always make sure I have rapid fire and how we can get in touch with you. But before that, what's something that I did not ask you or we did not discuss that you thought we would or should have?
Well, I think we covered a very small part of the technology, the technology spectrum, and what we currently see happening is there's this convergence of technology where it's not just AI, it's not just the metaverse, it's also quantum computing, it's also blockchain, it's also robotics, it's also 3D printing, it's also synthetic biology, and all these technologies are interacting and converging, all powered and driven by, and AI is the catalyst here to really make this happen. I'd love to discuss that, but I think we need a few more hours to do that.
We'll have to invite you back then.
Yes, I'd love to.
And okay, so rapid fire. What is the most overrated technology trend right now?
Crypto. And then crypto NFTs and crypto memes.
Most underappreciated technology that deserves more attention.
Blockchain. the technology that powers crypto.
One book everyone should read to better understand our tech future.
I'm currently reading the Singularity is Nearer from Ray Kurzweil. I haven't finished it, but it looks very promising because it sort of explores where this might be going. So that one.
An essential skill everyone needs to develop to thrive in the next decade.
Adaptability.
Yes, I love that one. And lastly, for rapid fire, what's the technology you're personally most excited about?
AI, for sure, because it's going to power everything.
And then what I always do, I'm going to ask you the same question, is our last guest wanted to ask you a question. And so that question is, what is a technology or AI tool you cannot live without?
It's ChatGPT at the moment. I use ChatGPT 24/7 for everything that I do. I also play around with other large language models, but I very much settled on ChatGPT. And the way it's moving forward, the way it's getting better, the way it helps me with my research is very, very useful.
All right. Amazing. And then if our audience wants to engage with you in your work or contact you, learn more about you, tell us all the ways we can do that.
Sure. You can reach me via my website, thedigitalspeaker.com. There's all my contact details are on the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. Just Google my name. There's only one Mark van Rijmenam in the entire world. So it's easy to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed learning from you, being the number one one of the top 16 futurists recently named, as well as you're the first in the world to have done several things that we've mentioned. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to our connecting in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to Lead with AI. I'll see you next time. as we continue exploring the cutting-edge innovations shaping AI across the public and private sectors. Until then, keep leading with AI.